Hi, everybody. Welcome to this live edition of the Atheist Experience. Today is Sunday, April 18th, 2010. I'm your host, Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Jen Peeples. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Where the hell have you been?
Yeah, it's like I haven't done this show in a month or so. As far as you know, I'll actually talk about what we did at Bradley University here in just a couple minutes. Cool. But thanks everybody for tuning in. As I mentioned, we're live. This is a public access call-in television program with snazzy camera moves and backgrounds. We're down to one camera, the other one's broken. So yeah, if it's not one thing, it's your mother. This program, as I mentioned, is live. It's sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state, something that I'll be speaking about in just a moment, believe me. The ACA has weekly meetings every Sunday at Romeo's on Barton Springs Road, beginning at around 11:30, except for the first Sunday of the month, when we host our lecture series at the Austin History Center, located at the corner of 9th and Guadalupe, or Guadalupe if you're an Austinite, and Guadalupe if you're not. The lecture series starts about 12:15. I don't have the information. Oh, the May lecture is going to be the election stuff. So if you're a member of the Atheist Community of Austin, you should show up to determine who your officers are going to be for the board of directors for the coming year. I don't have information about who's running. There will be more information at the ACA website, www.atheist-community.org. You'll also find a frequently asked questions page there, links to other information about what the ACA is about, and you can, from there, direct yourself to the website for this program, www.atheist-experience.com. That site, if you dig around, there's an archive link which has links to full episodes of the show. The show's been on for more than 12 years, I think now. And you can find links to clips that have been posted by fans. But if you've only been watching the show through YouTube clips, etc., you can go to that site, dig in the archive, and find full episodes, including episodes that were produced before I was even an atheist. So, good stuff there. There's also information specifically designed to answer questions about people who want to use the content. For people who are posting YouTube clips, we've got a couple of short ending clips to put on there with information that will direct people back to the ACA's website. And there's information about the licensing, etc. Creative Commons license, share alike. You can find more information at that website. If you don't get through on the telephone today, and we'll have the number up for you shortly, or if you don't want to get through, you can email tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself, the co-host, most of the people behind the scenes. We cannot possibly answer every email that comes in, although I do my level best to get through a bunch of them. I think I'm only about 120 or so behind at the moment. So if you've been sitting there at home silently or maybe even loudly cursing, why hasn't that Matt guy written me back yet? That's why. It feels like a month since I've done the show, and it's because they've been out of town, and we'll get to some of that in just a moment. But in addition to this program, the ACA also sponsors what was a bi-weekly internet audio podcast called The Nonprofits. Nonprofitsradio.com, PROPHETS. You can find more information about the show. As it stands now, there hasn't been a show for a month or so due to scheduling conflicts, and there won't be a show this coming Saturday due to a scheduling conflict. So for all the people who are like, hey, where's our nonprofit show? What's wrong with you guys? It's only every other week. Why can't you get it done? There's a lot of scheduling conflicts. The show is not dead. We are not dropping the show. What we're going to be doing is talking to all the people involved in the show and seeing if we can't find another day because there's more and more conflicts on Saturday. So we're going to see what we can do about getting it slotted into another evening or whatever to get the show up and do some makeup shows. My girlfriend's even volunteered to go through a book and do some via Skype ad hoc nonprofits makeup shows. So we'll see what we can do. After this program's over, everybody involved gets together and goes to dinner at Threadgill's, 301 West Riverside Drive. You can ignore the window that's popping up over on this side here. We'll be down there with shows on until about 6 o'clock. We'll be down there around 6:30, and we'll stay there until, well, we're done eating and done chit-chatting. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to join us. You do not have to be a member to attend any of our events. They're all open to the public. Next week's show, by the way, is shifting times again. It's the once a month when we're currently having to sacrifice our slot for training at the public access studio. Do not call and complain. The option was they own the studio, they need to use the studio, either the show gets canceled or it gets moved, and they were nice enough to allow us to shift it. Next week we'll be on from 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Central, so it starts 3 hours later than it would have. You can do the math for whatever time zone you happen to be living in. Jen and I will be back that week for about an hour, and there will be no dinner at Threadgill's next week due to the schedule bumping. I wasn't here last week, and Jeff D. graciously volunteered to jump in and host with Don. I haven't seen the show, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. And
That's good.
Russell and I were out of town at Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois. I've done a write-up at my Facebook page, and Russell's done a write-up at the Atheist Experience blog, which is atheistexperience.blogspot.com. Briefly, we got in Friday evening. We did a kind of tag team lecture. Russell started with hey, that was a cool transition, actually. Good job, Frank. Russell started in with an Atheism 101 and a quick look at skepticism. And after he was done, I rehashed in an abbreviated version the lecture that I gave at Pullman in Washington State a couple of weeks ago on the superiority of secular morality. That took us through Friday night after an hour or so of questions. And Saturday, we did a kind of special edition of this program. We moved to a bigger lecture hall, set up a table that I think is made by the same person that makes this table, these little white, cheap plastic tables we use. And Russell and I sat down. We went through some common arguments that apologists make, the fallacies involved, and took questions from the crowd, including some really entertaining back and forths from a few Catholic students in the back of the room. I don't know what it is, but we can always tell when we sit down roughly the religious affiliation of anybody in the room. And the Catholics and Protestants tend to sit at the very back in a group where they can whisper to their friends, which is fine. I was just glad they came. We had a good time talking. I think we went for like 2.5 hours on Saturday. So it was actually a longer show than we do here. And then Sunday we flew back, and that was our weekend. What was your weekend like?
Let's see, I chased a kid around and had him hanging off of me half the weekend. And I did work and showed up here and hung out with Jeff and Don. And
so your weekend was just kind of normal?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry I asked that. We got phone lines. We've got phone lines open. There's already people waiting. We'll get to them as soon as we can. There's a couple of news bits that we want to get out of the way. Yeah. Obviously, everybody and their brother emailed to let us know about the district judge ruling that the National Day of Prayer is unconstitutional. Something that we've all known for ages. This is a subject we get asked quite a bit because we support separation of church and state, and so I support the Freedom from Religion Foundation's efforts to have this case get to trial and get the judge's ruling on the constitutionality of the National Day of Prayer. We, in the past, have done National Day of Reason events in conjunction with the National Day of Prayer right at the Capitol. It's not the objection, as we've noted in the past, is not to prayer. Anybody is entitled to pray, welcome to pray. They can pray on the steps of the Capitol. They can get together and do it as churches and groups. It's public land. All they have to do is reserve it. They go there and pray till their knees hurt. The objection has been the government's official endorsement of the National Day of Prayer as a violation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. It's not the government's place to direct people or direct the nation to prayer. And a district judge has finally ruled on that case and ruled that it is unconstitutional. And I am monumentally embarrassed to announce that immediately after the ruling came out, the Obama administration announced that, we really don't care so much about what that judge has to say. We're going to do the same thing we did last year, and the president's going to go ahead and sign a proclamation for the National Day of Prayer. Now, by and large, the event is pretty trivial because we're not objecting to people praying. As I mentioned, we're objecting to the government making proclamations. In this case, we have a president. I realize the case is being appealed, and eventually it'll probably go to the Supreme Court, and who knows what's going to happen when it gets there. But as it stands now, a judge has ruled, and I realize I'm not a lawyer, but I was pretty sure that until this is actually appealed, unless there's some sort of injunction on the ruling, it's a matter of law.
Yeah.
And so for a president who, of all the presidents that have sat in my lifetime, this is the one that I thought was at least most likely to get it. Granted, he is a Christian individual by his own declaration, but he's at least acknowledged non-religious people. He was raised by a humanist mother. I would think of all people he would actually understand it. And for them to immediately come out after this ruling and say, we're going to go ahead and do it anyway. This was a court case that I wasn't sure was a really good fight to take on. There are plenty of big issues. There are plenty, and I still support it. It's a separation of church and state. It's a First Amendment issue. But you have to pick your battles. You can look kind of whiny and a nuisance going after things that to most people seem rather innocuous. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't a big fan of going after this any more than I'm a big fan of going after In God We Trust on money, etc. Now I've changed my opinion because I hope that they go forward, and I hope that they add the Obama administration to the next suit for what is, if they go forward and actually do this and make a proclamation in direct violation of a judge's ruling. I don't see what else we can do. This could have been a kind of a non-issue. You don't need to. Why is your God so weak? Is your religious view so faltering that you need the government to endorse your religious practices?
Yeah, apparently they do. And yeah, this is very disappointing news from the Obama administration. I mean, and incidentally, I think both his parents are actually atheists.
We have a weird
Yeah, we got a
echo
really
on
weird
yours.
echo here.
On Jen's mic, we've got an echo.
But yeah, as I recall, his father was a Muslim originally, and he deconverted and became an atheist. So he was raised by his mother anyway, who was a humanist, and his father actually was an atheist.
Frank's clever.
It was the TV volume that was up.
So yeah, I don't quite get it.
Yeah, of all people, he should get it.
Yeah, it's extremely disappointing.
And if this were a case of, he said, fine, I understand the ruling, but I'm still going to come out and participate in a National Day of Prayer without the proclamation.
Good for
Fine,
you.
no problem. That's covered by the First Amendment. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah,
because that's a personal statement.
You don't give up who you are when you take office, and
Right.
he's entitled to pray. He's entitled to go to collection of prayers, everything else. The one and only thing that he shouldn't be allowed to do by law, and that he should recognize that he shouldn't be allowed to do, is make this proclamation. And shortly after the judge's ruling comes out, he comes out and says that's exactly what he's going to do. Now, I will say that last year, the administration made far less of a big deal of the National Day of Prayer than previous administrations had done, but it's half-stepping.
Yeah.
And, I'm personally embarrassed by it in the sense that this is an administration that I at least supported. And what are you going to do?
Yeah.
How much of it's politics? I don't really care. A judge has ruled, at a minimum, you should say, I would like to be able to present a proclamation, but until this appeal is settled, I'm bound by law not to. How hard is that? Isn't that the right thing to do, both ethically and legally? It's an abomination. But that's all I have on the National Day of Prayer bit.
Well, speaking of separation of church and state issues, one of the things we did last weekend was we had a board meeting, and one of the items of discussion was actually this State Board of Education in Texas has come out with some recommendations for changes to the history standards that are, charitably speaking, it's just revisionist history. And in many cases, it's just a fact-free assault on reality here. In order to combat this, the ACA will join with a number of other organizations on May 16th at the state capitol to protest the State Board of Education's proposed changes to the history curriculum. Those changes are scheduled to go into effect probably
We're voting May 21st.
Yeah, May 21st. And the reality is we can't stop it. This board is controlled by a bunch of people who have an agenda. It's a religious and political agenda. They're going to enact these changes. We're not going to be able to stop that.
Yeah, currently SBOE stands for Some Buffoons Obliterating Education. But
Yeah. So what we would like to do, though, is put the SBOE and the Texas Ledge on notice that we're out here, we're paying attention, we're not going to roll over and pretend that this is not happening. This is damaging the educational prospects of about 5 million Texas children. They have a right to know the truth, and if your political and religious beliefs don't stand up to critical scrutiny and the truth, then they're worthless. So we're going to have a rally. It's 11 to 2. There is a meetup notice at the ACA's meetup location, and I will post updates to that as they come in. But as it stands right now, we're going to be there. We're going to bring signs. If you have any signs, especially anything related to separation of church and state, those would be particularly appropriate. And we'll have speakers. Basically, the logistics of this are kind of in place. You need to get 1,000 people out there. Okay, so I'm asking everybody, if you can participate on Sunday, May 16th from 11 to 2, show up at the Capitol and help us send a message. We need as many people as we can get out there. We need speakers, so if you're willing to speak, particularly if you have a child in the public education system, send us an email. We'd love to have you speak. Anyway, so...
Yeah, if you're looking for more information on that, you can visit Texas Freedom Network's page. They've been following the State Board of Education debacle the entire way through for years. I mean, they are the premier watchdog organization that's helping both Texas and the rest of the nation. Also, there's grassroots organizations in other states that are specifically stepping up saying, you know what, we're not happy with what Texas is doing, and we don't want those morons affecting what our kids get to learn in our states. And good for you. So May 16th, everybody needs to come down to the state capitol, 11 o'clock.
And incidentally, if you live in another city, particularly Dallas, Houston, or San Antonio, there are groups in your area who are organizing buses to come to the state capitol. So if you live in one of those cities and you're not aware of those groups, send us an email. We'll put you in contact with local organizers in those cities. If you live somewhere else and you want to organize that, by all means, let us know, and we'll try to, I guess, put you guys all in touch with each other and help you guys organize something. We need as many people as we can get here at the state capitol.
And we'll be down there. We'll be bringing cameras. We're hoping to film some of it and get it on the show that afternoon.
Yes.
And after the event is over with,
yes, after the event, we're going to go, and this is still, plans for this are still TBA, but we're planning to adjourn to a local pub, and once I get a confirmation from that pub, I'll let you know. But we're going to go over there and hopefully have an after-event party and watch the show from their big screen TV. So you'll be able to get some adult refreshments and watch the Atheist experience afterwards.
Yeah, odds are we'll be spending a lot of time talking about the State Board of Education, in particular, specific things that they've done over the last year or so.
Yeah, but this is it's really important because the next year the health standards come up for review.
Yeah.
And that is critically important because Texas has, I believe we've now dropped to the second highest teen pregnancy rate in the country. And we still have the highest rate of repeat teen pregnancies. So the just say no thing, not working for us at all. We need actual fact-based health standards out there.
Yeah, and I know you had another topic you wanted to go through, but you want to clear out some calls first?
Yeah, let's take some calls and then I'll get to this other topic here.
All right, we got Brian in New Jersey. Hello?
Yeah, how you doing?
Good, how are you, Brian?
I just want to say I'm a fan of your show. I've watched it a few times on YouTube, and it's great to have, atheist people speaking out about, the dogmatic religions, and I hope someday that somebody, can get a whole group and we could just wipe it off the face of the planet. I know it's a dream, but, maybe someday,
We'll see. Do you have a question? Thanks a lot, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. I would say, I was a believer for when I was younger, and because my grandmother was very Christian and my mother was very Christian as well. She taught in a Sunday school, and then I went to a Catholic school, and I was a Protestant. Now, I never understood the differences between different kind of religions, and so people were telling me, well, Protestant, you're not a real believer. They thought my version was different than Christianity or Catholic, and I never understood it. I was persecuted for that. So
you mean those Mary worshiping heathens had the gall to tell you that you weren't a true Christian?
Yeah, and this is what started to think in my head and saying that I thought there was just one version of it. Okay, if you read the Bible and you believe that story, that should be good enough for everybody, right? I mean, but why do people have to start branching out to these other religions? Well, Catholics are better than Christians and Jewish, and I just never understood it. That's what started my descent into non-belief, and then it was this other thing, is watching, all these horrible things going on in the world, cancer, diseases, death, famine, and I said, if there's really a God, he's not doing a very good job at, taking care of his creation. I mean, he created us, but he's killing us slowly but surely. If there is a God, he's not a very nice person. So that's
So
I think
the problem of evil got you, huh?
If there is a God, he's not a very good father figure.
So the problem of evil got you, huh?
Yeah, and that's what I said. And I know people have to have a scapegoat. They say, well, there's got to be a Satan. Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, people had to create this idea that there is a God, so they had to have an enemy and say, oh, that's all the bad things that happen because of Satan. That's it. So, in my belief, there is no God, there is no Satan, there is no anything. Why can't we just be like John Lennon said? Imagine all the world, with no religion, everybody loving themselves, peace and happiness. What's wrong with that? I don't.
I'm mostly on board.
Yeah. I think it probably wouldn't be that easy, but
yeah. So
it's great that I read these other books from great authors like Sam Harris. I don't know if you read his books.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he brings up a wonderful point. It was great. He said that what if I woke up one day and had a belief that there was a diamond buried in my backyard the size of a refrigerator? Now, I have faith in this belief. And what if I wrote a book about it? Like I could write a 100-page book about it, how much this belief has changed my life, and I wouldn't want to live in a world without this belief that there's a diamond buried in my refrigerator. Now, I could keep it to myself, so that'd be perfectly fine, but what if I started going out in the public town, the public square, and start preaching? You think, honestly, anybody would listen to me?
Well, if the history of Mormonism is any indication, yeah, they probably would.
You're going to find somebody to believe you no matter what you say.
Yeah.
And like I said, I have no proof of that belief. I mean, I could prove it to myself. I could get a team of excavators and gold and guys with metal detectors, and they could go over the whole part of the land and say, is the diamond buried back there? But my belief is so strong, my faith is so strong, it doesn't matter,
Yep. Did you have a question you wanted to get in real quick, Brian? Yeah,
I just wanted to ask, I mean, why do you think that this religion, especially Christianity, has lasted so long? I still don't, I know people now, some people are waking up and finally seeing that it was really man-made, this idea of a God, but I mean, why is it still holding on to certain kinds of people?
Well, you touched on one issue yourself. You basically inherit it from your parents.
Yeah, I mean, but we have free will to say, I don't want to believe this, but I think, what the thing is, Christianity has the greatest weapon of all time, it is fear.
Well,
it's not just Christianity, yeah.
It's the same for a whole variety of branches of theism, and the problem is that people are generally lazy when it comes to thinking. They're fearful, particularly of the unknown. They're uncomfortable with not having answers, and so they're more than happy to accept things that seem like answers but are really just pacifiers. And by and large, people suffer from feelings of loneliness, etc. So this idea that somewhere out there is some being who loves you regardless and who has all the answers to all the questions that you don't have answers is a really good pacifier. It sates people's curiosities and fears, and also the threat of hell and other things like that, the fear of the unknown. We don't have no idea. Nobody knows what happens after you're dead. I don't care who claims that they do. They better come up with some evidence. Nobody knows. And
nobody's ever going to know. Nobody's ever going to know what happens after you die because, how will we, there's no way that we can ever even try to imagine what's going to happen. So I would just rather say, people sit there and say, oh, God created the world and God did this. You know what? We're never ever going to know the real truth. I mean, let's be honest about it.
Well, I wouldn't say, you can't say that.
Trying to work on it and saying,
You can't say that we're never ever going to know. You're asserting that you know something that you can't know, or you don't know. We may know. We may find out answers, but we don't have a time machine. We don't have any way that we can verify that people can survive their own death, and so it's very comforting to a lot of people to think that death isn't the end. The idea that there's an end to life is terrifying, despite the fact that we know, on some level, it's true.
Yeah, I just want to say something real quick, too. I mean, I've seen the banana videos, the way Comfort and Kirk Cameron, and the way of the master, or the way of the idiots. I mean, that's what they really are, because those guys are really pathetic. I mean, Ray Comfort was on a debate once, and he had asked a question. Somebody asked him a question about, you say about that God created the human being, and, the eyes are perfectly formed, and the heart, well, what about things like cancer? And he said, well, because if you read the Bible, it says that everything in the beginning was perfect until Adam ate an apple, and that was God's excuse to say, you know what, you guys screwed up, I'm going to unleash all the bad things because of one guy eating an apple. It's really, really sad. What kind of God is that?
Well,
I don't know.
You get no argument from us.
Yeah,
I know.
Although I will say that
the guy was hungry, Jeez, it wasn't like a McDonald's around the corner.
Yeah. All right, Vinyl, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys are great. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
We've got Zini in Brazil. Hello.
Yeah. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good, thanks. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the show. I was a believer most part of my life, and since 2006 I became an atheist, and the show helped me a lot trying to understand more about atheism and see all that nonsense written in the Bible. Anyway, when I became an atheist, some relatives or friends, from time to time, they usually come to me and ask why I became an atheist. And one of the reasons that I usually give them is because this God depicted in the Bible has no morality at all. He asked their sons, let's say this way, to do horrible things in his name. Like, for example, the example that I usually give to these friends or relatives is about Abraham and how God asked him to kill his own son. And when I give this example, I usually ask, would you kill your own son if God asks you? And most of these people say no, but sometimes some friends said, well, I would, because he's God and he can do anything. And I was shocked when I heard that answer. And since that day, I don't want to have any relationship with these people anymore, because this is something horrible to say. And in my opinion, it's almost like if I say, well, I want to have sex with kids. This is horrible. I cannot understand someone that says something like this, or someone that say that would kill his own son just because imaginary being asked him. So I was wondering if you guys had a similar issue with relatives or friends when you became an atheist, and if you have any idea why some people have such blind faith in God that are able to do horrible things in his name. What do you think about that?
Well, I think they probably shouldn't have children, for one thing. And actually, we have had cases of people who claim to have killed their children either to save them from a life of sin, as in the case of Andrea Yates down in Houston. She drowned her 5 children so that they would never grow up and they would never commit sin, and she was basically trying to guarantee that they would go to heaven. And she was originally convicted of all 5 murders, and later that was overturned. She's actually in a mental institution now. So basically what we say as a civilized society to people who claim to do this is that you're nuts, and we're going to lock you away. And I don't know that there's any other response to something like that. And I guess to address your original question, if I ever had any relatives that would say that, and the answer is no. Most of them claim that their God would never ask them to do such a thing. And so then you point out in the Bible where, in fact, he did, he told Abraham to do it. He accepted Jephthah's sacrifice. And of course, he sacrificed his own son, if you believe the Christian doctrine. So, there's all this evidence there that child sacrifice is part of the bargain here.
We've had actually people call into the show before, and I've asked them that, and they've said, yeah, I would, after initially saying no or whatever. I think most of them are, they're looking at it from a different perspective, and it's not that they necessarily would kill their kids. They're looking at it with this preconception that if there is a God, he's all powerful and can do whatever he wants, and he is, and they have an additional preconception that no matter what he does, it's morally right. So if he instructed them to kill their kid or rape their neighbor or whatever else, that he must have some ultimate goal that is good, and that even if he didn't, there's nothing they could do about it. They better follow, otherwise they're going to get squashed like a bug. It's one of the kind of poisonous self-defense mechanisms that is built into many different religions, and that is, you're not allowed to question. You're not allowed to use your own mind. You are inferior. You are spoiled goods. You're the fruit of a poisonous tree. You are a base individual who is morally corrupt. And there is some being that's speaking to you which is supposedly morally infallible. And whatever instruction that being gives you must be good, and you must carry it out. And if you have doubts or questions, it's because you're somehow broken. You're not properly in tune. This is built into religion, in a variety of religions, to keep people from questioning, to keep people submissive, servile. And to, it's like the battered housewife type of syndrome, where you're constantly breaking somebody down and making them feel worthless and undeserving of your love, so that even when you treat them like crap, they will take the blame for it, that this is somehow their fault or whatever. It's a similar mechanism. It's a complex mess, and it's hard for people to break out of it. Now, the only thing that I can say that's good is that if you're really, really disturbed about those people that say, yes, I'd kill my kid if God told me to, ask them if there's anything short of that would get them to kill their kid. If their answer is anything other than no, you should call the authorities. If their answer is yes, that the one and only reason they would kill their own kid is if a God told them to, and they seem otherwise mentally stable, you probably don't have a great deal to worry about, because I'm relatively certain that since I don't think there is a God, that it's unlikely that any God's going to actually tell them to do so. The problem, as Jen pointed out, is that there are mentally unstable people who do what Andrea Yates did, who do kill their kids, and some because they think a God's told them to, and some because they've bought into a theology. And as I pointed out several times, including when we were at Bradley, there could not be any possible sacrifice that could be viewed as more loving. If you're the parent of a kid and you are convinced that if you allow this infant to grow up, that their eternal soul is at risk, if you allow them to keep living, but if you kill them as an infant, they will go to heaven. Even if you end up going to hell, what greater sacrifice could there be to sacrifice your own eternal existence for your kids? And while almost no believer actually thinks of it in those terms, that is the logical conclusion of that particular theological position. The fortunate thing is that almost nobody looks at it in those terms. And and along that same line, many of the things that, for example, Christianity says is moral, or Judaism says is moral, or whatever, most of the adherents don't believe that anymore. They have been pulled away from their religious roots by secular progressives who have changed the world around them and have said, we'd like to live in a world that benefits everybody, that is positive, that we have a chance to participate in what kind of rules we're going to have. We are not willing to accept that something is moral by fiat or declaration or divine edict or whatever. Something is either moral or not based on our assessment of the action in relation to the goals that we set. And if the goals are a better, healthier society, obviously, in much the same way that killing all the lawyers doesn't necessarily produce that, neither does killing kids. And as I mentioned in both of the secular morality lectures, the biggest thing we need to do is inform theists that they don't have to be stealth secularists. They don't have to sit there and criticize the secular morality that they actually adhere to. They are the biggest indicator that secular morality is superior, because they have sacrificed the traditional values that they would have accepted by nature of the holy book that they adhere to, and have adopted the secular values that they criticize. It's crystal clear to anybody who observes what actually goes on with respect to morality in society. And that's a really long answer for you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I understand all those arguments. What really bothers me is the fact that these people are willing to go against their moral without thinking about the consequence or trying to understand it. Well, even if there is a God, it's hard for me to understand how they are willing to do such things. But
yeah. No, even if there is a God, the act, both the command and the act would still be immoral. It would be immoral to say, kill your kid.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter, which is why, when I was talking about this during the previous lectures, I made a point of saying it doesn't matter whether or not some God exists or some being exists. The system that you're talking about is a might makes right one, and there's nothing moral about it. The fact that I'm giving you an instruction, it's just an edict. There's no moral consideration there at all.
Yeah, that's true. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Jen.
Great.
And again, thank you for the show.
Well,
Great.
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Whoops. You want to hit on the topic real quick? Keep taking calls, or?
Why don't we take one more call and then
Sure.
I'll do my topic.
We got Christy right here in Austin. How are you?
Hi. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I guess it's a little bit off your listed topic, but I've been wanting to talk to you for so long. It's just every time your show is on a different day to the past show.
No. It's always on Sunday, but we've had to shuffle the times. So it's actually a good chance for me to remind everybody. The show is broadcast live every Sunday from 4:30 to 6 p.m., except for a couple of Sundays, like next week, when we'll be on from 7:30 to 8:30. And it's streamed live over the internet as well, and you can find instructions for watching the live stream if you don't get Time Warner or Grande Cable, if you're out of Austin or whatever, anywhere in the world, except maybe for China and some places that might block it for content. You can log in and watch the stream live at roughly 4:30 Central, unless we have a time change. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, thank you. I'm actually kind of a different case that I hear on your show a lot. I'm an atheist. Both of my parents are atheists. My mother's from Europe, so they're not quite as, I don't know, but I'm 21 now, and I'm at college. I'm at UT, and okay, now that I'm an adult and I'm not in my mother's world, I'm constantly surprised when I meet people who are Christians and who don't believe in evolution. It basically just shocks me. It's like, oh, really? And I've kind of come to understand and accept that I'm living in a country full of Christians and with these ideas, and kind of accepting that idea. But my fiance, he is one of those. He believes in God. He's a Christian. He doesn't believe in evolution, and we will have children one day. And I don't I'm really concerned about this. Like I kind of at first when I discovered that he doesn't believe in evolution, I was just like, oh my gosh, is this relationship going to work? This is craziness. What am I dealing with here? But I love him. We've been together for a long time. He's a wonderful man. But I'm really concerned about when kids do happen. I can't imagine having my kids raised. I certainly will teach them everything that I believe, but how would I deal? I don't know how I'm going to deal with that future. I don't want my kids to be fed lies. I don't want them to be told that they're starting off as evil and all the other nonsense. And I don't know. The only thing I can think to say is the honest thing is, well, your father unfortunately is not properly educated and was brainwashed by his grandparents, who were brainwashed by their parents, who were brainwashed by their parents, and besides that, I'm a little concerned. I mean, it's going to be a very confusing situation for kids to be raised in, And I guess, I don't know, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are, or any suggestions, or anything to help clear up my concerns.
Yeah, aside from being accurate in that he was not properly educated and he was brainwashed, I actually think that approach is probably not conducive to long-term marital harmony.
Right.
So I think it's definitely an issue you guys need to work out before you get married. And I don't know how this is for you, but for me, something like this would be an absolute showstopper. I don't think I could be in a relationship with someone who denied the fact of evolution and who basically, I guess, would want to insist on raising children in a church.
Well, he hasn't been, like, I don't know how insistent he's going to be. I think we need to have this talk, definitely.
Yes, because I can tell you that people get very, very picky about these things. I've known lots of people who
know my baby has to go to heaven and all that.
I've known lots of people who are very well educated, who are very pretty much lukewarm about going to church or anything.
That's right there. I'm going to university, and I had a wonderful childhood where I, like, an enriched environment type thing, and unfortunately, he didn't have a very good childhood and ended up being kind of a bad child and a bad teenager, and he's starting community college next semester, and the thing is, he really didn't get a good education, and he's a very intelligent man, and I don't know, I know it's kind of hard to break through the religion thing, but do you maybe have anything you would suggest that I could give to him to read? Maybe I can make an agreement. I'll read one of your nonsense books if you read something about what would be
actually,
the best thing to give to him, to show him.
Yeah, actually exchanging books is probably not a bad idea.
I mean, it would be torture for me, but
maybe not. I mean, because if you read a book that he gives you and he discovers how easy it is for you to refute some of the points in the book, that may cause him to start thinking about his beliefs. But one of the books that I think that if you two read it together, it's probably the least offensive, least likely to provoke some kind of defensive response from him. It's Guy Harrison's book called 50 Reasons for Believing in a God.
50 Reasons People Give for Believing in God.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And the author is Guy Harrison.
Okay.
And he, it's a good book, and if you ask him why he believes, he's very likely to give you one or more of these 50 reasons. And so seeing all of this stuff written out and basically discussed in a fairly non-judgmental way may provoke him to think about what he believes in why.
Silly things like descended from monkeys. I'm like, what? or descended from chimps. Just things that really don't. You can tell he needs a little bit of education, and maybe it would. I don't know.
So we get a lot of emails from people that are either in your situation or in a situation where one of them has changed their views on religion long after they've been married and long after they've had kids. A couple of things. Since you're in Austin, Guy P. Harrison was actually on Nonprofits. He sent some extra copies of his book. If you want to send me an email and find a time that we can actually meet, I'll give you a copy of the book that he sent, because I'm pretty sure that you're exactly the person he would want me to give it to. But I will say, this is stuff that I can't stress this enough. I know you love this guy. I'm not trying to break up any relationship. You have to have these conversations before you get married, and you have to be willing to say that if we can't come to agreements about this stuff, that it's best that we don't get married. Because I get...
Oh, no, your mom's wrong. No, your father's... that's going to be so confusing for a child.
Yes, because I get...
She's going to think that I'm going to hell at one point, and at another point think that I mean, that's just... That's my biggest concern.
But I get email from people who are in situations where they didn't have this conversation, they got married, they have kids, and now everything is a disaster and divorce is looming, and what do we do about the kids? If you care about the education that your kids are going to receive, it's fine to work out some kind of equitable arrangement that everybody's happy with, where their dad gets to take them to church on occasion and teach them the things that he believes in, values, and you get to directly compete against those beliefs. But there's no way in a relationship where one person's religious beliefs denies scientific fact and the other parent's beliefs are such that they're teaching the children scientific fact, that you are not going to get into a conflict. What you have to do is start preparing yourself now by either figuring out what's going to happen when those conflicts arise, or how to avoid those conflicts in the first place. And
because we've been able to get just fine, but by deciding, let's just not argue about this. And it's been good for a couple of years, but it's going to have, you're right, we're not going to have to
kids are going to change that. Extended family is going to change that. There's a lot of issues that have to be addressed. I know plenty of people who are in relationships where one person's a believer and one person's not, and it works.
On that. If you do know situations where one is a believer, one is not, and they've come to like an arrangement, how toxic is it for the children? Like, according to your observations, because that's just going to be a mess for the children, like hearing one side and then the other within the parents. Those are the two biggest people in a child's life.
Right. The thing is that different people take their religion to varying extremes. There are plenty of people who are believers but don't practice or don't let it interfere with their daily life. But if your fiance is somebody who is, I don't know whether he just doesn't accept evolution or if he's vehemently opposed to evolution.
He just goes, oh, no nonsense, because he's read, I don't remember the name of the books, but some nonsense books that just, the ones that they'll take like a little teeny bit of a claim and throw that down without reading the whole rest of it. Like he comes to
it's called lying.
Like that, and it's just, I just want to educate.
Then the other book that I'd recommend is probably Why Evolution is True by Jerry Coyne.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of online resources if you don't want to go nuts on the books. There's Talk Origins is probably the best and the only one. But do us a favor.
You have just from families you've observed, how much of a mess have you seen? Like a lot of torment in these children?
Yes. I have yet to see a relationship with a believer and a non-believer with respect to Christianity. I haven't looked at. So a fundamentalist Christian who denies science married to an atheist who adheres to science with kids. I have yet to see that not turn into a nasty situation at some point or another.
Well,
it may happen. I'm only talking about what I've witnessed and what we get in email, and I'm only mentioning it as a cautionary. I hope you and your fiance find a way to work this out and stay happy and healthy and raise happy, intelligent, healthy kids, if that's the way it goes. And I also hope that if you find out that this isn't going to work out, that you do the smart thing and break things off before they get nasty and ugly. I have no idea which way it goes. I just hope that you both end up happy either way.
Well, I will tell you one thing. I'm not going to poison my children. I will. Thank you.
Sure.
I think he told me what I already kind of knew myself, and I do need to have a talk with him, so I appreciate it very much. And that's why we got through to the show. Thank you.
Sure, and drop us an email, tv@atheist-community.org.
I definitely will.
Thanks, Christy.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
So we'll pause from the Dear Abby moments.
Okay.
And Jen's got something to talk about.
Yeah. Back in August, Matt and I did a show. It was one of our Gorilla episodes from Matt's couch. And this was part of the last 3 minutes of the show. We got a call from Aaron. And this was in response to our statement about there being no extra biblical evidence for the historicity of Jesus.
Yeah.
And he was challenging that. Okay, so basically we only had 3 minutes to talk to him, and then we were off. But anyway, in the aftermath of that, he made a YouTube clip out of this in which he attempted to refute our statement on there. And he's a YouTuber by the name of Aaron K. 1994. I found out today that someone has filed a DMCA claim against him. It was a list of videos, and that video was included in the list. And for those of you who don't know what a DMCA claim is, that's the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998. It basically allows someone to file a claim of copyright infringement against someone. So I wanted to address this on the show because, first of all, the Atheist Experience didn't file this. The ACA didn't file it. And no one filed this with our approval. I regard something like this as similar to what Patrick the Foolish Atheist was trying to do with suing Ray Comfort for having, publishing a bumper sticker. Aaron complied with the license, our Creative Commons license. He added his own content even. So it's even better than what a lot of people do. There was no violation from our perspective. So if someone filed that complaint and cited that video as one of the violations, and they did it on the basis of the content from our show, let me tell you right now, whoever you are, you're an asshole, okay? And I hope Aaron decides to file a counterclaim against you. I hope he finds out who you are. And the other thing I'm going to tell you is that you just stepped in a big steaming pile because now you got the ACA pissed off at you too.
Yeah, whoever did this, assuming this is what actually happened, because I don't know for sure that a claim was filed, and I don't know all the specifics about this particular video. But if some fan of this show decided to lash back at some lame YouTube apologist by making a DMCA claim against it on behalf of an ACA clip, you are an ass. And you know what you've done? You've put me in a position where I don't read comments on YouTube clips ever. Couldn't care less. When people send me clips to, oh, did you see what this YouTuber had to say about your show? No, I didn't. And I'm probably not going to waste any of my time watching it because they're welcome to call in, they're welcome to email, we can have discussions. I have zero interest. And the couple seconds of this particular clip, I think if it's the same one that I watched, he was like, oh no, YouTube apologist ever has used that argument. Well, who gives a damn? Like, YouTube is the pinnacle of apologists. It's asinine. You people live in your own little YouTube world that I couldn't give a crap about. But now you've put me in a position where I have to go out and not only acknowledge this kid's pointless video, I have to support him. And I have to help him get his account back because somebody filed a DMCA claim that they didn't have any right to claim about content that they don't own. That's ours. So whoever you are, good job.
Yeah. Well, and the other complaint I have about this is that I actually, we got so many people sending us emails about this particular clip after he put it up there that some of us actually did go out there and watch it. Okay, wasn't particularly impressed. He didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. But the other thing that I did get from watching his video is this sense that Aaron is actually an intelligent kid, and there's a reasonable chance that at some point, after he gets out from under his parents' control and he gets away from his church a little bit, he's going to find out that the atheists have been telling him the truth and these other folks have been lying to him. And there's a reasonable chance he's going to come to reason at some point. He may become one of us. And I don't want him to stop doing what he's doing, because if that happens, and I may even go on the record and say when that happens, he's going to be extremely credible as an atheist because he's been down all this road. He's done all of these apologist arguments. He's going to know exactly how to refute every one of them. He's going to look back on his history on YouTube and say, okay, here's the answer to all this stuff. And he's going to be able to say, I've used every one of these arguments and they all fail. Okay? There's no reason to shut him down. I don't agree with him. I think he's silly. He's doing all the things a lot of us have heard over and over again, but you know what? He's allowed to do that. He's allowed to say what he needs to say on TV or on YouTube as long as he doesn't violate our licensing rules or anybody else's copyright.
Yeah, not only that, but what were you thinking? Every clip he puts up directs more people to us.
Exactly.
If somebody's got a bad argument against something we said on TV, leave it.
Yeah.
But, Aaron, if you're watching, we had nothing to do with it. We're
Yeah.
sorry that some moron decided to take action that he shouldn't have. And you're, of course, welcome to call back into the show whenever you want.
Yeah. Okay. My second YouTube rant today has to do with people who email us saying, I've created a new YouTube channel called The Atheist Experience 2 or 3 or whatever, and I want to post all your videos, and as soon as I get director status, I can post them in their entirety, and what do I get out of this? And the answer is, you get to take that YouTube channel down immediately, okay? We're not impressed by people who decide they want to make their bones on YouTube by using our content. You don't get to do that. If you want to post clips of our show under your account, you're allowed to do that as long as you comply with our Creative Commons licensing scheme. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. But you do not get to use the Atheist Experience name and our content and earn your director status that way. We have a YouTube user out there, Freethinker, that we've authorized to do this. He contacted us years ago and said, hey, I want to aggregate your videos at this one site. He doesn't pretend that this is us, and he does a great job, and we have no problems with that. He's got about 1.5 million views of various YouTube clips of our show. We allow him to do this. I think there's one other Atheist Experience YouTube channel up there that's got significantly less viewers on it as well. And the most recent guy that contacted us with this generous offer, I know he knows about these other channels because he subscribes to them. I did actually go to his channel and check him out. So
it's nice that people are interested, and nice that people are trying to get the word out and everything else. And don't get me wrong, we're very happy that clips of the show have done well on YouTube, and that it's brought in viewers and helped us communicate with people all over the world. So much so that we've got one call from Austin today, and that feels like the prize, because it's rare that we actually get calls from Austin. There are bigger issues. As a nonprofit organization, there are issues on that front. Particularly since director accounts at YouTube have the ability to make money, and if somebody's making money off of our content, that's a problem.
Yes.
Despite and one of the biggest issues is that would be annoying. And despite the legal issues about making money off the content, it would be incredibly annoying to find out that there's some punk ass kid who's cutting clips and making money when I'm giving up 40 hours a week or so to do the show and not. I mean, there are nonprofit concerns in place, and we have to manage the content as well. We're greatly appreciative of everybody who's taken an interest in the show, those people who posted clips and other stuff. Please, like I mentioned at the top of the show, stop over at atheist-experience.com and dig around there. There's information about both the licensing stuff and links to clips and who's authorized and what you can use and how you can use it. And let's not shoot ourselves in the foot doing stupid things.
Yeah. Well, and I would also point out that in the case of Freethinker in particular, one of the reasons we said yes when he asked if he could aggregate our videos under this one site, the big reason is he has a lot of original content, his own work that he's put up there. And so we could go there and we could look at all the stuff that he's put up there, and we had something to base our decision on. A lot of these guys, they have barely anything up there, and it's pretty clear they want to get a lot of viewers and get a director account using our content, and we're not cool with that.
Yeah, I have this big love-hate relationship with YouTube. I mean, I love the fact that you're able to get content out, and that it's a free form. It's like public access for the internet. But that means that it's like public access for the internet, which you take the good and the bad. But
so if you find something on the show that you like, you want to post a clip of it to your YouTube account, great. Knock yourself out. Don't waste your life posting entire episodes 10 minutes at a time to a YouTube account hoping that it gets you director status one day.
Anyway,
Okay.
enough ranting.
Yes.
And to those of you who are doing it right, thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You guys are awesome.
We love it.
Those of you who are causing problems, please don't. I don't have enough time for all the problems. I don't have enough time for the things when there's not any problems.
Yes.
Anyway, we've got Mike in Nashville. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
All right, well, I believe in God, and I think that I can logically and philosophically deduce that it is probable that he exists.
Can you define God?
Yes. First, he must have no creator, or not, I shouldn't say it must have no creator.
Okay.
It must be logical. It must have a form to it, or a logical aspect about it. And I believe that it is supernaturally spiritual.
Okay, I'm confused. I do want to let you get to whatever proof it is, but I'm confused because you haven't said, when you say it's logical, are you saying that this God is actually intelligent as like an agent?
Well, I believe that it has a design, a structure, that it's not chaotic or random. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, but, well, apart from the supernatural thing, it doesn't have a creator, and it is logical and non-chaotic. So, how is that a definition of a God?
Well, that's my definition that I'm using.
Well, okay, I could define God as a metallic container that holds my coffee, but that does us no good.
But that is not supernatural, and it has a creator.
Okay, well, sure. Because I gave a different definition than you. But I'm wondering. Okay, go ahead with your proof for the. What use is this God?
Yeah.
Well,
you have some. You
technically,
have
I
X.
call myself a pantheist.
Okay, but you've defined God as something that's not created, that is logical and is supernatural.
Yes.
Okay. Does that? I don't know that gives me any information, sufficient information to justify the definition. The reason we use words is in order to communicate ideas. So, God normally carries with it the idea that this is some sort of intelligent agent. Are you saying that God may not be an intelligent agent by your definition?
Yes, I'm saying it doesn't necessarily have to be a persona.
What difference does it make if you could demonstrate that this thing existed? I mean, you're defining God in a way that, yes, it's different from me defining my coffee cup into existence, but you've picked a particular definition that's useless.
I wouldn't call it useless.
Okay, so what use does it have?
I mean, it demonstrates that things are not random, that there is a spirituality and an importance to things that happen in the universe, that there is underlying logic and morality.
How does your definition of God demonstrate any of those things?
Well, if okay, can you say that again? I'm sorry.
How does your definition of God demonstrate any of those things?
Well, if it has a logical form to it, and it has, and the universe, if the universe has order and structure, it means that the things that we go through are not random events. If this universe was put together randomly, if there was no God.
But no. Nobody's saying that the universe was put together randomly if there was no God.
How could it have been any other way if there is no God? Or if there is no structure?
Do you know what random means? There is a structure in the universe.
So you believe that there is structure to the universe. Where does that structure come from?
It's intrinsic.
Yeah.
It is the physical laws.
Well, that's what I would use to say that makes this universe God.
Why?
So
Why call it God?
So you're calling the universe God?
As a
Yeah, and I stated earlier that I
know,
have to classify myself as
right.
pantheist.
You're a pantheist, so why call the universe God?
because I feel that
Why can't we just call it universe?
Yeah,
What does
that's what I
God
call it.
add to it? What does God?
you're right. You could call it any label you wanted to.
Okay, so what additional understanding do we gain by labeling it God? And by the way, please demonstrate that the universe is in any way supernatural. That part of your definition is just kind of hanging out there somewhere.
Yeah. Well, for one, it has no creator. There's nobody that created it.
What's that have to do with being supernatural?
And also, if you look at things like, and you'll probably scoff at this, but things like art, things like music.
Those have creators.
Yes, they are. I'm not saying, obviously I know Mozart created music, but I feel strongly that art is an example of spiritualness.
So that's the best argument I've ever heard. I feel strongly that. That's not an argument.
Okay.
I feel strongly that there's a God. I feel strongly that my big toe is prettier than somebody else's big toe. That's not an argument.
Okay, I think that art and beauty is one reason to believe.
Okay, so now you've gone from I feel strongly that to I think that. What's the argument? Not just the claim. I know you think that. What's the argument?
That is an example of, you asked me an example of something supernatural or spiritual, and I'm giving you one.
Those aren't supernatural. And in fact, I mean, you're citing purely subjective experiences as some kind of justification for claiming that the universe is God. I mean,
you've defined the universe as God. You then assert that it is therefore supernatural. And when asked to provide a justification for this, you go from I feel that it's supernatural to I think that it's supernatural. And I'm still asking why. I know what you think. I knew that as soon as you said pantheist.
Yeah. Beauty, I think. Beauty is one reason to believe that the universe is supernatural.
Why?
The fact that there is such a thing as beauty
Why?
in our universe.
Why?
Why what?
Why is the existence of beauty evidence of something being supernatural? You have to construct an actual argument that leads from some premise upon which we agree, to the conclusion that because this exists, therefore. You haven't done anything remotely like that. What you're doing, I'll tell you, because you're not able to actually form it into anything approaching an argument, but you're using a logical fallacy known as the argument from ignorance, or at best, the Dawkins reformation, the argument from personal incredulity. You see beauty in the world. You do not think that beauty could exist without there being some supernatural cause. Therefore, there must be a supernatural cause. Well, congratulations. Your ignorance about what other causes there might be is completely irrelevant. It is no valid argument for you to claim that beauty is necessarily the result of supernatural causes.
Do you think that this universe could have that something like beauty or emotions could be randomly given to our universe, that it just happened?
no, they're not random. Evolution has selected a lot of these.
I believe in evolution, but I'm saying, how could things like art, beauty, what we think is beauty, how could we even begin to think that things are beautiful? That seems like a whole different realm than, gaining arms and legs.
No, it's not.
No, it isn't.
It's not. If I stick you with a pen, that causes pain. If I give you a massage, that's pleasure. Do you think that has to have a supernatural cause?
No.
Okay, then why would you think that my visual appreciation of something as attractive versus my visual rejection of something as unattractive must have a supernatural cause?
Well, it's more than just visual. I mean, it's emotional and...
Okay,
I mean,
it's still a brain state. What is so different about appreciating something as being visually appealing versus being visually unappealing? What about those brain states requires supernatural intervention?
I'm just saying that I don't think that those things could have happened.
Well, congratulations.
Without God.
Congratulations.
That's an argument from ignorance.
That's it. You haven't, I mean, it's a logical fallacy. I don't know how many ways we can explain it. Saying that you don't think it could have happened without some supernatural cause is not an argument.
So you can't think of any anything beneficial in all of humanity's evolution for an emotion like fear.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Can you think of anything in all of human history, all of human evolution? Can you think of anything that might have been beneficial for the emotion fear?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, if you're afraid of, like, a lion, you will run away from it.
Well, then you understand why other emotions might have an evolutionary benefit and why they wouldn't be random.
Yeah, but fear is a primal emotion. Nobody would argue that dogs don't have fear.
Do you think dogs experience love?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
That's the best answer you've given all day.
Yeah.
The extent of love, I mean,
Do you think that dogs find some things more attractive than others? Like, for example, legs in fire hydrants versus cactus? Don't you think that a dog is going to find a plate of food more beautiful than a pile of dung? Well, in some cases that might not be true, but
well, now there's a really big difference between a plate of food, which is needed for sustenance and living.
But there's not from what you're talking about. Why do I find something beautiful? It's because my brain is relating it to something else that I've found beautiful. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, a good dinner is attractive to me, so the image of a good dinner is attractive to me. A pile of dung is unattractive to me, and so the image is unattractive to me. And so we have this broad spectrum of things. Plants are going to be, for example, beautiful to me, and I wonder if it's just a coincidence that plants tend to also provide us sustenance. Attractive people are going to be beautiful versus unattractive people, and you can draw connections between, for example, their physical health and their ability to reproduce and what diseases they may have. This labeling of things as attractive or not, or beautiful or not, there's nothing, I mean, the closest you've come is you just don't think it could happen unless there was some supernatural intervention. And by the way, your supernatural intervention is not necessarily any kind of agent that could intervene. You have an entirely contradictory structure to your pantheism.
So you're saying that beauty is designated by necessity?
I think the
things that we need are beautiful to us. Is that basically what you just said?
I'm saying that that's one instance, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so couldn't you use the fact that, art, if it's beauty, then that means that we need it? Or if it's beautiful to us, obviously art and music and stuff like that doesn't help our bodies live.
Actually...
But couldn't you use that to say that there is something spiritual about it because we do need it?
No, you
and that's
can't.
Why it's beautiful?
No, you can't. Just because you don't know what the explanation is does not mean you're justified in asserting that the explanation is supernatural. I mean, in the case of music, we know that music has effect on the human body, and therefore we have some good understanding of why some things are called music and other things are called noise. Although we're talking about entirely subjective labels that are based on individual experience. But even if we had no clue as to why somebody found something beautiful or why everybody found something beautiful and this other thing not beautiful, that does not justify asserting that there is a supernatural cause. And by the way, we never even had you define supernatural or spiritual, the spiritual being the most nonsense misused word anybody's ever done. You can't get from A to B simply by saying, I can't think of any other way it would happen. That's an argument from ignorance, as we said like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And on that note, think about it some more, Mike. Call us back when you get some more meat to the argument, but I got callers waiting, so thanks a lot. We got Dave in New York.
Hey, sorry. I was just listening to that for 25 minutes, and it was really annoying because the caller just wouldn't realize that he had no essential point. But I wanted to ask you guys.
You can
about,
prove that you can do better.
Not really. I don't think so. Well, personally, I'm an atheist, but I wanted to ask you guys about a logical argument that I sort of deduced and sort of borrowed from this guy, Berkeley. I don't know if you've heard of Berkeley.
Gnarls Barkley?
No,
Charles Berkeley?
Bishop George Berkeley.
No.
Okay.
He was an English philosopher. And basically, I don't know if you're familiar with the point he puts forward, but he says that all things, essentially, metaphysically, are concepts. They're conceptual. And he tries to defend this by saying there's no evidence for matter, the abstract concept that materialists refer to as matter, exists. So, and most people probably rejected it because that's ridiculous sounding. Of course, things outside of our perceptions exist. But the way I see it, they really don't have a good reason to do that by Occam's razor.
What do you mean they don't have a good reason to do that? What do you mean by they?
Like a materialist, for instance. Like, are you a naturalist? Do you accept the proposition that matter is an external thing and there's a physical world and a mental world?
Yeah, this whole argument is, he's basically arguing for solipsism, or arguing based on solipsism, that we have no way of verifying that, for example, we're not a brain in a vat and that the entire world that we experience it doesn't actually exist. Okay, and my answer is, so what? I may in fact be a brain in a vat, and you guys might all be figments of my imagination or some massive delusion that's being fed to me, but it doesn't matter, because I am forced, at least for now, until someone demonstrates otherwise, to deal with the reality that I experience within the boundaries of that reality that I experience. If there is some other reality, that actually needs to be demonstrated, and it not just assumed simply because we cannot prove that we are experiencing the ultimate reality.
Well, yeah, that's what he ontologically deduces, supposedly. He's saying that if all things are mental, they're located in a mind, therefore we are all located in the same mind. It happens to be that...
Well, the if all things are mental or conceptual is a false assumption. He's correct. He's correct. If all things are conceptual, then they're in a mind, but that's a tautology. The point that he needs to demonstrate is that everything is actually conceptual. He needs to demonstrate that we're not experiencing the ultimate reality, that this is all a fictional reality. That needs to be demonstrated, not asserted.
Well, if everywhere if the universal law of gravitation is active everywhere, that's also a tautology. That's an assumption.
No, it isn't.
But scientists assume it anyway.
I can prove it. See?
Well, yeah, you proved it for that location.
Sure.
Now you have to...
Yes. No. Now you've branched off to something else, and that's whether or not we can rely on the value of inductive reasoning to say that what's the laws of the universe in this area are most probably existent elsewhere. And we know, in fact, that we may not be able to say that.
Okay, but...
Which is why science doesn't define truth. Science creates models that give us an understanding which is tentative based on new information. All we can say is that in all the cases that we have observed, gravity operates in this way.
Yep.
Well, yeah, but as a scientist, you'd still make deductions about that. For instance,
Yes.
in all the strata we've seen in the early Cambrian, there are tribalites. Therefore, tribalites were present in the early Cambrian factually everywhere in the world, even though we haven't tested it everywhere in the world. So, scientifically, it seems to me...
No, I don't think we conclude that trilobites existed everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
We conclude that they existed in that time period in that strata that we've uncovered.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They concluded that they were present in the ocean, in all particular locations in the ocean in that time.
No, not in in the particular locations in which they've been found. It's not like the entire ocean during this period was a sea of trilobites.
No, of course not. But the deduction
But I mean, and you've branched off from talking about a scientific law, a physical law, off to an aspect of evolutionary theory. So, I mean, where are you going with this? Because you're kind of all over the map here.
Yeah, it seems like I'm sort of jumping around. But essentially, what I'm saying is you can inductively say that all things are pretty much conceptual. And if you can say that, or at least we have a good reason to believe that all things are conceptual, because everything we come across is conceptual.
No, the fact that you conceive something does not mean that its ontological nature is conceptual. That is a fallacy. What is the good reason that you have for assuming that everything is conceptual simply because we can conceive it?
What do you propose it is instead, besides conceptual?
Matter?
Yeah.
If it's material, then explain to me what this materialness means. What is it? What's the property of matter?
What is the property of matter?
Yeah, what does it mean? What do you mean when you say matter?
Why does it need to mean something?
Yeah.
Well, you're saying that I need to explain, or theists would ever need to explain, define God before you say that you think he exists.
Right.
Well, you have to also define matter before you say it exists.
Matter has a definition.
Yeah, it's...
Just because we don't know everything about it doesn't mean that it's not defined. But the big thing is that this is what we directly experience. It becomes the default position, and if you're asserting, in fact, that this cup doesn't exist, that it is, in fact, only a concept, that's something you need to demonstrate, not just assert. And so you said a minute ago that we have good reason to think that everything is conceptual, and I'm saying, what's that good reason?
The good reason is everything we come across is observed through sensory perceptions. There's no object which we've observed.
No, you just said observed. That verb means that we did observe an object.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
It's tautology.
What good reason do we have to think that everything is conceptual?
Because there's no other nature to objects that we can talk about. Like you're saying that atoms exist externally to the mind, and they're this physical stuff, and they have an essence or whatever, and they're made out of matter. I want you to explain what the nature of that is, the substance of that is.
You just did.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make any sense. Saying atoms are this thing that exist outside of our minds doesn't really explain anything about atoms.
Have you looked at a periodic table lately?
We can weigh
yes.
them.
Yeah, it describes a lot of properties of a lot of different kinds of atoms.
That's great, but it doesn't show how those properties are physical and external to the world, to the mental world, as opposed to just mental.
You're correct. We cannot demonstrate that solipsism isn't true. I said that at the beginning. You are now saying that we have good reason to think that it is true, and your argument is that we can't disprove it, therefore it is true. That is an argument. No, sir. It's an argument from ignorance. I settled this at the beginning when I said that we could not disprove it, that we must assume by necessity, a matter of practicality, that the reality that we experience is real, and that if it's not, that needs to be demonstrated. And your argument is that because we cannot demonstrate that it's actually real and not conceptual, that this gives us good reason to think that it's conceptual. And that's a fallacy that called an argument from ignorance.
But by Occam's razor, we would have to assume it's the best possible solution. Because if you're saying
Dave, you're an idiot.
Okay.
Dave, you're an idiot, and I'll tell you why. Because I've explained the fallacy, and instead of coming back with an explanation that clarifies why it's not a fallacy, which would involve a restructuring of the argument, instead you spit out Occam's razor. And by using Occam's razor, you're committing the same fallacy again, because you're going to misuse Occam's razor to make an argument from ignorance. Occam's razor, meaning that we shouldn't multiply entities beyond necessity.
All right, so let me address...
And I already
argument from
told
ignorance.
you what the necessity was.
Okay, so you're saying I'm making an argument from ignorance.
Yes.
Yes.
I understand that.
So don't do it again.
But, okay, would I be making an argument from ignorance if I was to say, hey, all the people we've run across have selves, so we should infer that all people have selves?
No,
Why not?
because that's inductive reasoning.
But that's exactly the same thing as saying all the things we've come across are sensory, so we should infer that all things are sensory.
No, because, oh boy, as I said about 5 or 10 minutes ago, just because we can conceive of things does not mean they are by nature conceptual.
Okay, but what are they? Are you a skeptic? Are you saying that nothing exists at all and it doesn't really have a nature? Or
No, that's what you're saying.
But you're saying that everything is physical. It has this
Yes,
physical nature.
yes,
It's
and the
also
fact-
a bare assertion, as much as it is for me to say that
It's not a Dave, I'm going to hang up, I swear to God. It's not a bald assertion. As I explained at the beginning, it's a practical necessity. I experience this reality, and I must deal with this reality within the scope of this reality. I don't know whether or not it's the ultimate reality, and until somebody demonstrates that there is a reality beyond this, I have no good reason to think there is. That is the application of Occam's razor that applies.
Okay, so reality is reality, basically.
Boy.
Wow.
You say.
You get
Yes.
Okay, I was just confused as to why you're saying reality is material instead of reality. I just don't know.
Really?
I don't know. But thanks for answering that sort of. You sort of helped me understand what your positions are better.
Well, I'll remember next time to just start with reality is reality. Because a tautology really clarifies things, Dave. We have a little over a minute left, and I don't want to screw anybody over by taking their call with less than a minute left, so I'm going to do some reminders. As a reminder, we'll be going to dinner after the show at Threadgill's, 301 West Riverside Drive. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person's welcome to join us. It's almost 6. We'll be down there roughly around 6:30 or so. As a reminder, Nonprofits is kind of on a hiatus while we look for a new day that works for all of us. The show is not dead. We'll post notes and we'll get updates on the show just as soon as we can get back to it. I promise we'll even try and do some stuff to make up for it. May 16th, have your butt at the Texas Capitol. Join us down there to put the Texas State Board of Education on notice before they vote on stuff on May 21st. Also, May 6th is the National Day of Prayer, which means it's also the National Day of Reason. And while we didn't have anything in particular planned and weren't going to do anything after the court ruling that said it was unconstitutional to have a National Day of Prayer, odds are pretty good. Some of us will have our butts down at the Capitol then as well. Jen and I will be back next week at 7:30 instead of 4:30. Thanks a lot to everybody. Thanks, Jen, for letting me ramble.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.